Lastly, with Jermell unifying 2 weeks, or undisputed, 2 weeks ago, where would you like to see him go next? There's talks of Maul maybe going up to 68. So obviously those belts at 60 would be there for Mel. But what would you like to see him go in Showtime as well, obviously?
Well, I think he's got some obligations. He's got some mandatories and some obligations he's got to take care of. But there's a younger generation that's waiting there. We just had Tim Zhu debut on US TV. We've had Fundora look really strong in the step-up fight. Whether those guys will be the next fight or 2 or 3 fights down the line, there are still big fights for him in 54. Now 60 would be interesting too, but I think he's got a lot of options.
Now, real quick, going back, you said Boots fights would be really expensive. It's because the Cameron Duncan and Al Heyman, it's signed to Showtime, right?
Yeah, it's just because it's a big fight. He's been a star for a long time. He's got a certain level of purse. Boots has a certain level of purse, and it's an expensive fight. Now that doesn't mean it can't happen or it shouldn't happen. And it's worth it. I mean, that's a really mouth-watering matchup. But it's not just that one fight that we're chasing. There are lots of opportunities for Boots, and we need to continue to move him up and help him get into a position where he can challenge for the title.
He has like a deal with Showtime exclusively, meaning that there's more than just they're both on Showtime or they fight on Showtime. Is that he has his people that have to.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. The reality is, look, we've done a lot of work with him. We're making a commitment to him. We're going to continue to feature him and give him opportunities. He's making a commitment to us, and he's going to continue working with us. And even if we didn't have that, it's been a great relationship. We really can't argue with the results. I think we've been a big supporter and helped him get in the position that he's in. He's done his job in the ring, looking fantastic every time he goes out. And I think, look, everything's clicking, so we're just going to keep putting him on that platform and watch him succeed.
And now there's been talks and circulating of Spence Crawford going on. Obviously, you want to be the network that hosts that fight. What would it kind of take? How do you get into that position? Do you play an influence on even making that fight happen? Making it closer.
I'll pitch in. If it's helpful. You don't want to be too many cooks in the kitchen in complicated situations. But look, I think there are 3 elements to the deal. There's, do the fighters want it? And that's very clear. Both of them are absolutely. Are there any, do the promoters want it or the promoter obstacles? That's out of the way. We don't have that problem anymore. So the question is now, just can we make a deal that makes sense? So I'd say we're 2/3 of the way there. Now that last third is a big piece.
What's that third here? Is it the money?
Yeah, making the deals for the fight, and making sure everybody's happy. It's a reasonable deal that works for everybody involved. So that's the last step. But the other 2 elements have been resolved. Now it's just about sort of let's make the numbers work and get this done.
It's been rumored.
Look, like a Vegas fight, LA, New York.
Look, I don't think there's any venue who is entertaining boxing that wouldn't want to be involved. Whether it's the Cowboy Stadium at AT&T, whether it's Raider Stadium, whether it's Staples Center, whether it's here at Barclays. There's no one that's not going to be interested in hosting that fight.
It's a good thing you asked that because Cowboy Stadium obviously would be home to Errol. But what about Lion Stadium in Vegas? The stadium fight, I think you could definitely sell out that stadium with
I love the concept of I love being in Cowboy Stadium. I'm a Cowboys fan. I love that there. But if people wanted it for neutral ground, then I think Vegas Stadium makes the most sense.
Now going back to I know other people who want that fight. I know Fox and Showtime have been the 2 networks that host a lot of these great BBC fights. Is there other networks that may want to pitch it for the fight?
I'm sure. I'm sure they're, again, just like every venue would want this fight. There's not a network that would want that fight. But I think our work speaks for itself. I think our production value speaks for itself. I think our ability to market and promote speaks for itself. We're doing the best fights. We're doing more of the big fights than anyone else, and I think that's worth something.
I think that fight rivals $1 million pay-per-view buys. I know that.
It's tough. The market is changing. There's a ton of piracy, so it's not. We're not in the days of Mayweather where it was sort of on automatic and getting 1 million buys. It's just a different market, it's a different, different level of competition, different level of piracy. So, I don't know, is it 400, 500, 1 million? I mean, your guess is good for mine. I mean, some of this is a little bit of luck. Is once you announce it, it sort of catches fire and spreads. I mean, that's what happened with Mayweather Pacquiao. And, everybody knew it was big, but I don't think anybody knew it was going to catch fire like that. So with a little bit of luck, sure, it's 1 million. Am I going to sit here and guarantee it? I definitely can't say that.
Is there an opportunity there for like a 3 or 4 city tour between Dallas?
That'd be interesting. Yeah, that would be really interesting. To some extent, it depends on sort of when the fights get made and how much time we have. I mean, that's the one thing. If we're going to do that, we need to have the fight made well in advance, so we have time to do a tour without impacting the fighters' camps.
That would bolster the pay-per-view numbers with that city tour. At least a 2-city tour, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, look, I'm a fan. Like, I'm not saying it has to be 10 cities like we did for Mayweather Canelo. Although, look, I really enjoyed that. That was a really interesting part of my career. But yeah, I'm in favor of at least a handful of cities.
How would you treat Bud on Showtime? I know he's kind of had like mixed feelings where you was at. Would you guys open up the red carpet, treat him like?
Oh, absolutely. Look, he is a champion. He's one of the pound for pound best in the sport. He deserves his respect, and he'll get it. But when Tyson Fury came over to fight Deontay Wilder, he was treated respectfully and fairly. I mean, we don't show favorites, in that regard.
And then ultimately, lastly, Wilder just kind of had his little emotional statue revealing the other day, and you mentioned that I might come back. You guys hosted some of those. Are you guys going to kind of bring Wilder back at home? Maybe like Parkinson or something as an introduction back to heavyweight?
Look, I think I would love for him to come back at the Parkinson. They got a lot of affection for Deontay here. But by the same token, look, the sport needs him back. I think it's good for the sport. If he's going to come back and do some big events, that's great for the sport.
This fight tomorrow, man, Tank versus Rollies, man. This is a huge fight for so many different reasons. How important is it going to be to follow this up with another great fight after this weekend?
Gotta make a path, y'all. Gotta make a path. Gotta make a path.
Well, look, that's one good thing that I think we've got set up. We announced our schedule, and it wasn't one good fight or 2 good fights. It was a series of good fights. So we know, we've got maybe one of the strongest fights on our schedule next week in Roman versus Fulton. And then looking forward beyond that, we've got the Charlo fight in Houston, and I think we'll continue with it in the second half of the year.
I'm gonna leave the fans with something, man. What do you want to tell the fans about this weekend? For the ones who haven't got the pay-per-view yet, the ones who haven't got the tickets yet, what do you want to share with them?
Look, if you haven't seen a Tank Davis fight, it's a special thing. Like Tank, I think one of the reasons for his popularity is he's a showman. He tries to entertain in the ring. He tries to entertain, as part of the event. And he brings that big fight feel. Like he is studied and watched and observed what Floyd has done in his events. He's taken a little of that and brought like that big spectacle to it. So I think that's why the crowd here in Brooklyn has responded so well.
You talked about it not being the Mayweather days and being able to guarantee 1 million buys, partly because of the box's popularity, obviously, but also privacy. How do you adjust to that from the business side?
Well, look, eventually technology will catch up, and that'll be one part of it. Part of it is sort of understanding, getting the boxing fans to understand. If piracy continues, and God forbid if it gets worse, then the big fights aren't going to happen. Unlike UFC, the overwhelming majority of the money in a pay-per-view goes to the fighters. And so if pay-per-view is not a viable mechanism for financing fights, then the big fights may not happen. I mean, it's the simple plan. It's not, Showtime's not getting rich on these. This money, the vast majority of it, is going to the fighters. So when you've got probably, 75, 80% of the money going to the fighters, then anyone who's pirating is taking money directly out of their pockets. You know, people like to think that there's not a victimless crime. You know, like when they're pirating music, they're like, oh, I'm just taking it from a record label. They're not taking it for Showtime. You know, we're just getting a little sliver of it. You know, when people are pirating, they're enjoying the fight without paying for it. You know, they're taking money out of the fighters' pockets.
The replays, how are the ratings on those? You usually have it before a fight, but how's the lead-in for the replays when most people already know who won the fight?
Yeah, you know, it's the replay used to be a bigger deal, you know, before there's, you know, digital clips and everything out. You know, people like you've missed the pay-per-view, then you see by the time you get to the delay, you've seen a lot of clips online. So it doesn't do as much as it used to, but you know, it's still a useful tool, and it still brings in people, you know, who maybe weren't able to or weren't willing to pay for the pay-per-view. They catch it on the replay, and you know, I think they're more likely to buy the pay-per-view next time if they sort of see the excitement of what happened.
Mayweather Promotions, can we mic you up for a quick interview?
Sure.